Hey there.
Hey, Commissioner Clay, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. We are very close to getting everybody in the shot here, but not quite. Let's see if we can. Let's get that without unplugging everything and causing disaster.
Sorry to miss the real meeting. I'm here.
Great. Okay, so I am now open the Lacey Commission on Equity meeting on February 24th, 2025. So welcome everyone. And, we start with the meeting with roll call. Everybody's here. Except Commissioner Hegwood may be a little bit late, but other than that, we are all here, right? Yep. So I need a volunteer who wants to read the land acknowledgement.
I'll read it. I have a copy.
You have a copy?
No.
Oh, okay.
You can borrow mine. It's gonna be the first big paragraph.
Okay, thank you. We, the city of Lacey, are on the ancestral land of the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek, including the Nisqually Indian Tribe and Squaxin Island Tribe. We acknowledge and remember those tribal people not recognized today who were absorbed or relocated into other tribes for survival. We recognize the ancestors and their descendants who are still here. We recognize and respect the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek as the traditional stewards of this land since time immemorial, and their role today in taking care of these lands in perpetuity. We recognize and have the responsibility to call attention to the histories of dispossession, forced removal, and abridged treaty rights that allowed our nation, state, and city to develop as they have today. We recommend that community members read the Medicine Creek Treaty of 1854.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to the agenda. We will be approving the agenda from previous meeting minutes and consent items. So I would like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda, previous meeting minutes and consent items.
I move that we approve the agenda, previous meeting minutes and consent items.
A second.
Great. It has been moved and second to approve these items. All in favor, say aye.
I,
All opposed? Okay, item have been approved. Great. Do we have any public comments? Anyone in the audience?
So, Chair Snar, we had nobody sign up online to provide public comment, and it doesn't appear that we have any members of the public here today. You do have a number of public comments that were provided as written public comments, and that were 6 written public comments.
Do we want to talk about that or? We had it before, right? The public comments in writing, was that email we are referencing?
Yep, correct. And they were all sent out to you before around 4 p.m. today by our clerk, Brandy Legomina. And so they will be coming to you all. I know in the past I've sent them, with the agenda, and then if any additional ones came, but now they're just going to be consolidated and sent to you all at the same time.
So public comments is not a dialogue. The purpose of, I just want to go over this. So the purpose of the agenda item is for you to inform us. But I guess maybe that doesn't serve since we don't have anyone here. But for your reference, it is for them to give us their feedback on views. And the comments made by members of the public are there on loan and are not endorsed by the city. If that will happen. And we usually allow 3 minutes when they sign up to speak for public comments. Okay. So public comments, and then we move on to the business item. Oh.
If you have no public comment, that would be the next item of business right there.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. So we have inspirational item. I think it was Dr. Jackson who volunteered last time.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Madam Chair. We are coming to the conclusion of Black History Month. The month of February has been full of activities around this entire community. But one activity in particular that has been inspirational to me, and I wanted to share some of that inspiration with the rest of you because so much news is so down these days. We're trying not to let ourselves get disheartened and swept up, but there are some good things going on in spite of. So by way of the Black History Pop-Up Museum that the New Life Baptist Church provided for the community, it was very inspirational, not only to me, to people like Cliff, who's part of that effort, to the congregation of New Life, but to a number of people that went through the museum and left some very heartfelt written comments about their experience. Some people went through all 4 Saturdays, so they couldn't cover it all in one Saturday with all they wanted to read and try to absorb. So that was very heartwarming to us and very inspirational to us. In spite of the first Saturday that was pretty inclement weather that really impacted attendance, we still managed to greet and welcome more than 600 people to the pop-up museum, of which 167 of those were students who came through during the week as part of educational field trips that we provided. Those students were very inspirational to us. We did a pilot project with one elementary to try to determine if that age group could really benefit from this, because it's all different reading levels and comprehension levels. And that test case proved to be very beneficial. We found that the elementary kids had more questions and more engagement than the middle and high school kids. So that particular part worked for us. We had people who were moved enough to leave us monetary donations, wanting to support future efforts of the Black History Museum. And we found that the museum opened up a lot of dialogue and questions that would not have happened as people moved through. And a majority of attendees at the museum were white individuals. And so we tried to build in time for people to ask questions, to make comments. One of our visiting groups on one day last week was a group of state employees who came through as a staff training and development activity. And that was new for us. On their paid daytime, their boss felt the need for them to be exposed to just a dab, but this dab of history to help them in their work, where they were strongly supportive of DEI kinds of activities. So it's all been very inspirational to us, especially given the efforts to eradicate history, to rewrite history, and to carry on as though these things didn't happen and these people haven't existed. And so it certainly inspires us to think in terms of beginning to plan for the next year, taking into consideration some of the recommendations, and we wish we had seen more of this, and that kind of thing. We had a lot more to display than we had space to display it. That was a good problem to have, but it's a lot of work involved, starting to plan now for next year. What are some of the exhibits and displays and themes that we did not include this year that we want to expand into? So it was very inspirational to see the heartwarming response of the community to that effort during this particular time. But as of yesterday, we began to break it down. We had a wonderful celebratory feast yesterday following church service. And another inspirational thing to me was there were a couple of people, some older white women that came after service and joined us for the feast, who had been watching our service live on TV. And came from Tumwater, got up, got dressed, drove over from Tumwater and joined us for the feast. So that was very inspirational. So there's a lot more going on that's good and positive in this community than we're paying attention to. And it's easy to get drawn into the demise of everything. But as a community, we're continuing to strive and move forward. And so we're greatly appreciative of that. So thanks for this moment to offer those inspirational comments.
Yeah, absolutely inspirational for me. I mean, I personally went there with my mother and who thoroughly enjoyed, and yet that was such a nice hospitality that everyone provided. People stopped by and asked, make sure that we're okay, and so that was fantastic.
Great, great. Shannon came by. She had a guest. John came by twice and said he couldn't read it all in once. And so we saw a lot of commission support in that, and really, really do appreciate it. Where was my other commissioner that came? Our newest commissioner.
And Clay also was there.
Yes, yes. Annie's always there. We just adopted Annie, let me put it that way. So it was very inspirational and heartwarming, and we appreciate all the support.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Any volunteers for next month? Any volunteers to bring inspirational item for next meeting?
Annie has one.
I'll volunteer.
All right. She happened to have a little louder voice than you did.
No, it's all good.
Oh,
Thank
No, you're
you.
good, Annie.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
good.
okay, thanks.
Alrighty. So we'll go on to business items, and I know that Shannon has a quick update that she's gonna.
Yeah, I
Give it
just,
to us.
really quickly, I'm so glad that the Lacey Youth Council is here to join us today, and I've got just an update on some future meetings, so I'll actually hold my comment until afterwards,
Oh.
Chair, at the end of the Lacey Youth Council meeting.
Oh, okay, great then. So then we will go to Lacey Youth Council Equity Discussion. And I know that Jury's gonna have icebreaker session.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good. Hello, everyone. I'm Zuri. I am the Lacey Youth Mayor this year. And if everyone could go around and say, well, your name and an icebreaker, and if you're in high school, your grade as well. I'll start, and then we could go around.
And what was our icebreaker, sorry?
Oh, yeah, sorry. The icebreaker was a talent, a special talent that you think you have. Okay. I already said, my name is Zuri. I'm a senior in high school, and the talent I have is I play the cello for the school, and I'm okay at it, I think.
I'm Karen. I'm the Commission on Equity Student Representative, so I know all of you. I'm a student at Summit Virtual Academy. I don't know what my talent is. I'm in cosmetology school, so I can do hair, if that counts as a talent.
My name is Lily. I go to North Thurston High School and I do not know of a talent, but I do play 3 sports, so yeah.
Hi, I'm Joel Whipple. I go to North Thurston. I'm a junior. My talent is I can play 3 instruments.
And commissioners, we are inviting you as well to share talents, so, yes, if you don't mind.
Oh, hello, everyone. I'm Raul. I'm a commissioner on the Commission of Equity. I don't think I have talent. I've been on this earth for so many years, so maybe I'll find one eventually. I just kind of go through the flow of it all, so when I find one, I'll bring that next time.
Commissioner Clay, can we get you remotely?
Yeah, Commissioner Annie Clay, and I am a pretty good carpenter. My talent.
My name's Sadie Sidlin. I'm the management analyst in the Lacey Youth Council staff liaison. And my special talent is that I am very good at charcoal drawing. And see, I'm surprised, Steve Shannon.
No idea. I'm Shannon Kelly Fong. I'm the Assistant City Manager here at the City of Lacey, and I'm gonna say my talent is being able to run for a very long period of time. So I am a ultra marathoner, so.
oh my goodness. Kim Sauer, and oh my gosh. For many times I thought about what's my talent and I couldn't really come up with anything. I'm like, I'm so amazed that I can make this far without having such talent. I think I'm good at making the everyday, end the day with like feeling like I've done something, because even if it's 10 o'clock at night, I'll make sure that house is clean and things like that before I go to bed. So I felt sometimes like maybe this is my talent, to cleaning the house at it.
Yeah. Cliff Brown, I'm commissions on equity. I guess my talent is, after being married 44 years, is being able to follow my wife's instructions.
I'm Sophia Allard. I go to Timberline High School. I'm a senior. And my talent is basket weaving.
Oh, wow.
I'm Abhi Kumar. I go to Timberline High School. I'm a junior, and honestly, my talent is volleyball.
Oh, no.
I'm Marian. I go to Timberline. I'm a junior, and my talent is I can run a 4.57 mile.
I'm Al Hodge. I'm a senior, and I'm also a representative for the Human Services Work Group. And I would say my talent is that I can speak French.
I'm Thelma Jackson and I'm a commissioner, and I think my talent is gardening. bring semi-dead plants back to life.
Wow.
So we'll have to take that as a blessing as a talent. Yes.
I'm Isabella Valerio. I go to River Ridge High School and I'm a clerk. I'm a sophomore. And I'd say my talent is I can sing Italian opera.
Ooh.
I'm Dior Trin. I go to River Ridge High School and I'm a junior. I would say my talent is knowing how to do nails and hair from watching my kids do it for a living.
Nikita Hart, Commissioner here on the Commission on Equity, and my talents would be cooking and being a nurturer. Yes. Quick study.
Luca Freilich, I'm a sophomore. It's hard to pick out a talent, but one thing I've been trying to do recently is self-teach myself calisthenics.
I'm Sydney Lee. I'm a sophomore at North Thurston High School and I make good matcha.
And I know we have a full table, but we do have one more staff member. Veronica, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Veronica Hand. I'm the Equity and Inclusion Program Manager. And I think my talent, I play the flute, not very often, but I also love salsa dancing.
And we do have with us tonight too, our Deputy City Clerk.
Here. My name is Brandy. I'm gonna tell you my hobby is cooking. Sometimes it's a talent, sometimes it's a work in progress. And yeah, I'll be good.
Oh, thank you, everybody. And I will go ahead and get us started with a brief introduction about the Lacey Youth Council. So this is the 6th cohort of the Lacey Youth Council. I know some of you commissioners have had the opportunity to connect and collaborate with some of our previous cohorts. This is our largest cohort in the Lacey Youth Council so far. We have 14 students this year, and this was the first year that we have had so many applications that we had a very competitive application process and had to go through interviews and rankings. So really glad and happy to see this program expanding and that the youth in Lacey have the appetite to come and learn about our government. We also have for the first time this year, students representing Summit, goodness, that's an easy hard word, Summit Virtual Academy and a homeschool student for the first time. So with that, we've got a really expanded youth council. You can see up here, we also have really great representation from all of the schools, both public and private in Lacey. So we've got a really great council this year. We also this year have done a few new things for our council roles, just like our Lacey City Council. We do have a youth mayor, a youth deputy mayor, and a youth clerk, as you've heard. This year, we did add a social media coordinator to help collaborate and work on the youth social media. They do have a Lacey Youth Council Instagram page. So we're trying to get more information to the youth on platforms where they actually go and can digest it. So having kind of that nexus and somebody who can help us come up with creative content in a way that speaks to the audience we're trying to reach has been helpful. New this year, we also have now the Human Services Commission, which means we got to add a human services representative from the Lacey Youth Council. So that was a great opportunity this year. I'm very happy to hear that that work group has become a permanent commission and we will be able to have a permanent youth council representative. For the first time this year, the Lacey Youth Council also got to do a tour of the maker space and go off-site and see what that was about. As you just heard, we have some people with some really great hobbies and skills, some of which they can embrace down at the maker space. This year, the city is also working on the comprehensive plan. So one thing the Youth Council got to do is be involved in that. Our comprehensive planning staff came in and talked to them about the survey that we did before it came out. They came back and talked to the Youth Council about the survey once it was out and kind of went over the questions in the survey and the intention behind collecting that information. And then once the survey was out and the results were issued, the Youth Council, not to brag, was the first group who got to hear the results of that survey And we actually had a youth council member who won one of the gift cards that they issued to the community for participating. So very cool to have the youth council able to participate in that survey in a whole new way than they have had the access to do before. So tonight, we do have a youth council discussion. I thought I'd share some great photos of them. Different to previous years, the youth council this year will be kind of sharing their equity experiences that they're having at their schools and some experiences one-on-one to share with you about what they're experiencing and thoughts they have that could maybe improve the community. And then after their presentations, open up to some discussion with you all and some feedback on your experiences. So I will go ahead and turn it over to them. Youth Council, you can just let me know when you're ready for me to transition to the next slide. And you don't have to stand up. You can if you want.
I'd like to, if you guys. Good evening. We are Northwestern High School, and we're going to be giving a presentation on equity and our experiences with equity at the school. I'm Zuri.
I'm Lily.
Noel.
What equity means to us is acknowledging that everyone has different needs and giving everyone an equal opportunity based on those needs. And to kind of go off those equal opportunities, making sure that everyone has the same equal resources and equal access so that they can succeed in those opportunities. And equity also recognizes that many have different circumstances, which may be out of their control. And equity provides different levels of support to allow everyone to have what they need to succeed.
Some positive things that I've seen at the school is our unified sports program, which is a sports program for kids with special needs to play sports just like anybody else. We also have given them the ability to participate in art classes like anybody else would. So they get to participate in classes like the classes you would see at Gen Ed could. And we also have our extracurricular clubs and other inclusive things outside of school.
We of course also have some concerns. Our first concern is that good intentions can be misunderstood. So an example based off of that is during lunch period, all the high schoolers eat lunch, then they go off to their classes, and special needs students like go around and clean up our messes, which could have very good intentions and just good intentions behind it, but that's not very translated to the students. So just making sure that there's more transparency, I guess, in some situations.
Yeah, and another concern that we have is lack of awareness of certain learning disabilities and the awareness of resources available for them. So like dyslexia or ADHD, other examples like that. There are a lot of people who just sort of suffer silently, and they don't know that there are resources available to help them, and that and I think a part of that is just that there's a sort of stigma that's preventing them from speaking out for themselves.
자연의 품에 푹 안기고 제주 바다에서 수상한 모습이 포착됐습니다.
Intermission.
To kind of go off those learning disabilities for students, offering more classes with an inclusive curriculum, those with learning disabilities, and this is one of our ideas to improve equity in our community, and more specifically in our school.
And as I was saying earlier, increasing awareness of certain learning disabilities and encouraging an open dialogue so everyone feels comfortable speaking out and sharing.
Equal access to learning, like for certain students, they can't afford everything that the school has. So like the books and like textbooks and some fees. So like for like going to prom, you have to pay a certain amount to go, which some kids don't have that kind of money. They can't pay to go. So I mean,
And supporting equity-based training for teachers and staff with a commitment to transparency that they're like in equity training, because they don't really say that to us, so we weren't sure that that was even.
My name is Ebony. So, equity for us means allowing universal value and fairness and just overall equality, no matter their, anybody's physical characteristics, economic status, or condition. Everyone should have similar chances and opportunity.
Some positive equity experiences we found was the cultural appreciation in our school. That's including our Asian Pacific Islander Club, our Black Student Union, and our Cultural Awareness Club, which plans our cultural assembly. The hygiene drive, winter warmth, and our counseling center that holds resources for mental health and other accommodations needed for students. Some concerns we found is that age serves as a bias for discrimination, and limits opportunities for the youth.
An example of this could be, it's just a personal example. I was denied moving up or being, like a level in soccer because I was too young. So I wasn't able to progress. And that kind of was a form of restriction, my, opportunities.
Another concern we found is racial barriers can impact educational opportunities. One example we found is that certain teachers won't address subjects to us, they'll address it to lighter students, even if we're the lead on the project, or I'm president of cultural awareness, and it's really hard to get teachers to address me personally, even though I will address them with respect. And then another issue we found is the lack of support and promoting AP and advanced classes to students of color. That's something that we want to promote and we're working on.
Some of the ideas that we came up with to improve equity in our community are to provide skill-based opportunities rather than age-based. For community events like the cultural celebration, teach people about various backgrounds and throughout the community. And also to emphasize the importance of equity overall at events or in school.
River Ridge High School.
So we're from River Ridge. I'm Alhaj, I'm a senior.
I'm Isabella, I'm a sophomore. I'm Dior, I'm a junior.
So to us, equity means giving everyone the same opportunities and resources that they need to succeed, no matter what their characteristics are or where they come from. So this includes people with learning disabilities, having individual learning programs, and also being able to give everyone a chance to participate in a sport. And we're lucky to see this at our school through special education programs and also unified sports.
We have a lot of organizations and fundraisers. Some of them are food and hygiene drives that help people in need. We kind of turned it into like a positive competition almost between the grade levels, and all of it was really beneficial to the community. We also have free and reduced lunches and food bags, which helps families in need. They can take home with them. And our MLK multicultural assemblies, which help with cultural representation and really helps teach and provide exposures for students with different cultures. I know, for example, at our MLK assembly, they played multiple videos and had us join in singing songs, which is, I think, just really enlightening for a lot of kids. And then some of the concerns we have is ticket prices at certain school events can be pretty expensive for some families. Some of them can be waived, not all of them, and I think just working on getting more waivers. And our advanced placement test fees can be pricey, especially if you're taking multiple AP classes. You can get those waived too, but they only waive about half of them, which can still end up being $200 to $300 if you take multiple. And then funds for sports don't directly go to the actual sport, say like money from games for tickets, it doesn't go directly to that sport. It kind of just goes to a generalized account, which I think that we can work on that.
Some ideas to improve equity in our community is equity sports passes. We noticed that fees for gear, equipment, and just playing the sport in general can cost a lot, and we don't feel that families should worry about needing to like not be able to support their kids in like games that they play, especially since some games are really expensive and they do really add up. Fully waived AP tests because you can have a reduced AP test, but last year I took 4 AP classes, so that's already $400 worth of tests that I have to do. Doing the reduced cost only covers like half of it, so I was still paying $200, but I personally think that's still a lot. We also think that some sports should still have more funds from, I don't know, other places. We also have a tech equity program for laptops, Wi-Fi access, and free tech literacy workshops. And then lastly, youth-led civic engagement funds. Some students could have really great ideas to support equity, and I think we should just grant them some money to support that and their ideas.
Combination of private home and virtual school. We do have 2 private school students who were unable to join us tonight, but we do still have 2 who were able to help.
Again, my name is Luca Freilich. I'm a sophomore.
I'm Kieran and I'm a junior.
So we talked about what equity means to us, and we kind of boiled it down to this one sentence. Equity to us means that everyone is accounted for individually and accommodated for regardless of their differences. All right, so some of the positives that we noticed in Lacey, one of the first ones is, in general, Lacey is welcoming and has a strong sense of community. So most of the time when you're encountering people in Lacey that maybe you don't know, they're nice and welcoming in general. Also, one thing that the private school students were saying is that the student bodies were tight-knit, which is a positive. And then the last thing is the option to work remotely. If some people don't want to go to school, if it isn't as convenient for them, they're able to work at home.
Some concerns we had were the consideration of needs for students with IEPs in 504. An IEP, if you don't know, stands for Individual Education Plan. And to share an experience I had is when I was asking for an accommodation that was on one of my plans, a teacher denied it for me, and I had said, it's on my file, you can look it up. And he responded to me with, "That's nice, you can go sit down now." So, and I have encountered a lot of just denying with accommodations, which you're not allowed to do. So working on really informing teachers that there are students that are different than they are, and a way they can be a better teacher is to accommodate that. Some other concerns is it's difficult to sign up for AP classes. So some students just don't have the option to sign up for AP classes, and those that do, it is a much more difficult process than it would be for a student who's attending a public school. Another concern is private school education may be enforced based on personal bias. So some of our private school students had talked about how teachers who believe in one religion may push that onto their students and can be quite disrespectful to the students who have different beliefs in them, which is obviously a very big issue. And Another concern is misconceptions and limited awareness cause discriminatory behavior. So basically just people stereotyping, never really ends well for, a teacher or a student. So really just making sure that when we say that we are equitable, that we actually are. And then some ideas we had to improve equity in our community is more attention to private school from the state. Private schools are often overlooked in the big picture. Like if you asked what schools are in the like North Thurston public school area, you'll get 3 high schools, not the 5 or 6 that we actually have. And then encouraging exposure to underrepresented groups to build a more equitable society. So again, just not only teaching your students what you want them to believe, exposing them to everything, because it's good to have diversity in your community.
Thank you, Youth Council. We wanted to take this opportunity to open up for you commissioners and the Youth Council to have some discussion. And I know one of our Youth Council members was unable to make it tonight, but she was very interested to hear what you all had to say about encouraging and supporting individuals with their self-expression and respecting them for their own identities and not having individuals conform to societal norms. So this commission has any input, feedback, resources for that?
Well, it helps to know, through discussion, to what degree do students feel as though they aren't accepted for who they are? To what degree is that a problem? To what degree is that impacting their ability to learn, to succeed in the educational process? We have some general statements as an equity commission about the inclusion and acceptance of all people. And so it certainly extends to young people in our schools as well. But we're constantly trying to determine to what degree do certain things exist in our community, in our schools? To what degree is it a problem, so that we as an equity commission can ask questions or attempt to, provide some input? So that would be some of the discussion from my point of view. Is it, are there isolated incidents, or is it rampant, or is it, what's the situation? Because it impacts learning. And that's what we're concerned about, learning outcomes.
And to what extent do the staff empower the student to advocate for themselves? It shouldn't always, if they won't and the parent has to, but there comes a point where they're gonna grow up, they're gonna be adults. At what point in their education do we empower them to advocate for themselves?
Youth Council, any other thoughts, experiences? You have the experts in Lacey here on improving equity.
Do you feel,
You can go, sorry.
do you feel that you are getting enough support or education expanding your view on equity or inclusion and diversity at your school? Is there like concerted effort from your school giving you that kind of access?
I'd say oftentimes, and I'm kind of going more off of my public school experience, when we say we're teaching students about diversity and about all different kinds of people, I feel like that's really, I'm not quite sure how to say it. They only teach you about certain kinds of different groups. So we learn a lot about different cultures and races and LGBTQ plus and all that, but they don't say a lot about like our houseless community or the struggle of addiction in our community. And it is shown in our youth that that is not taught to students, which I find to be a very big issue. Because I think are houseless and people struggling with addiction, those community members, I think they need a lot of support. And when we're teaching our youth nothing about that, and so they have these misconceptions about addiction and how people become houseless, they're growing up and bringing those misconceptions in to the world, and it's just really not helping that community. So I feel like there's a lot of people that just aren't represented. And I'm not sure why exactly, because I know North Thurston, our school district, I'm not sure if it's still the same, but it was like 50% of students are it was either under the poverty line or barely above it, which that's like half of our school. So we should be talking about that instead of ignoring those problems, because when you're ignoring half the community, that's not diversity or inclusion.
So from your presentation throughout, you have shared some examples of some that are not, that needs to work on more, like with AP testing fees, not age-based, but ability-based, and so you gave some of the examples. I'm just wondering, what do you do about it? What is your steps to go and make some changes within your system? Do you go to your teacher, you talk about it as a group and approach, I mean, how are you addressing those issues?
For me, I'm constantly having to kind of take like a student initiative to start like clubs or email information about opportunities for students of color. And like I'm the founder of our AAPI club, and without that, like we just wouldn't have gone together if nobody had started. And it's honestly a lot of teachers at my school personally, they're not gonna take the initiative to go out to students and be like, hey, this is what, like, if you didn't know about this, this is going on. Or if you wanna learn more about your community, you can do this. It's something that we have to do it ourselves personally, that I found for my community. And it's really just students taking the lead. We have like an Instagram account, we reach out to as many students as we can. We try to do mass emails, but it just like, I found that talking to teachers, I haven't gotten much help because of the teachers who I'm talking to.
I have a question. You're student leaders in the community, but does that leadership come out in your individual schools as well for some of the things you identified here? You want a setting where all students have what they need to be successful and opportunities. What about your curriculum? What about your curriculum that everyone is subjected to? I contend that our American education system is educational malpractice because none of our students are leaving their secondary school experience, that K-12 school experience, prepared for the real world and the life that they're gonna face. Do you get a chance to comment on that, other than among yourselves? And I asked that question because I was just talking about the inspirational thing of the Black History Month activity. And the fact that this year we reached out to every school district in Thurston County, inviting their school and their students to participate in an educational field trip to learn a little bit for a few days about Black history. And there's lots more history of other ethnic groups. And only North Thurston schools responded to that invitation. And so part of the follow-up for us is gonna be, why didn't the other schools respond? You know, it's not taught in the schools, so it was an opportunity as a field trip and to not avail themselves of it, whether it's Black History Month or whatever month, you know, acknowledging the different ethnic histories that are left out. Do you all get an opportunity to make any kind of recommendations along those lines and comment to your teachers and staff about what's missing out of your curriculum and how you're being shortchanged? That might be a loaded question, but this is a unique opportunity. You all are here.
I think we are allowed to make comments on it as like they'll listen. But yeah, they won't do anything.
Okay.
I remember last year during Black History Month, there was another opportunity for students to go learn another thing. I don't know if it was the museum, and they had actually like they had come to us and they're like, oh, can you spread the word for us instead of talking to like the history teachers and things like that. We're like, yeah, we can, but you know, it might be more helpful to talk to like a teacher that can actually say this is what happened. And I do think that the turnout for at least on Timberline side was bigger because our BSU recently, like they really reclaimed the club and they have been doing a lot more activities, a lot more promoting to the students. And I do think like if you don't have students that are gonna take initiative for a thing like Black Student Union, you're not gonna get as much of a turnout for outside things and for inside things. I do think it's very much like students promoting it to other students. Like it's not like we tell a teacher and then it gets promoted. It's more like students who founded the club, like promoting it on social media or talking to other students and get more students involved. And then once there's enough, like something can be done. But yeah, I think it's definitely through students and not through staff or students' recommendations to staff.
Because we're looking at how we can get the information out differently. You know, it's obviously not enough to just send invitations to the school district superintendents and ask them to share that with their curriculum directors to pass it down to principals and on to teachers. So we got to do a better job of bottom up other than top down. But I was just curious and interested, you know, what your student perspective might be on that might be helpful to us as we move forward.
You think the student body would have some
Pardon me?
input? You would think the student body would have some input on some of that as well. You know, sitting on an advisory board or something with the people who put the curriculum together throughout the year and getting their input on what else do they want to learn, you know, and going that route. The one thing that I was kind of perplexed by was finding out about the difficulty in accommodations and homeschooling. I mean, that just blows my mind as a person that had a child that had an IEP in public school. How difficult it would be for an accommodation. I mean, when you leave the educational system, whether you go on to college after high school or not, you go to work, they provide accommodations for you in your work. Why not in your school? So that's, especially in homeschool, I find that to be pretty out there and mind blowing.
And my question to students would be, do you have a champion at your school that you can turn to? That being the principal says, I'm here to support you, you have a direct line to me, get on my calendar, we can talk. Or an assistant principal or program director, someone you can go to that has the ability to make changes or, you know, or educate the staff based on your concerns. Do you have champions like that in your school? Or you go to a teacher that's assigned as your advisor and depending on, you know, how well that teacher supports you, would be the measure of your success or lack of success in what you're trying to advocate for?
Again, going off of my more public school experience here, I think it's the same issue with, I mean, like a principal, they're kind of like required to listen to you. They're not required to actually do anything. Which do anything about what you say, they do. But, and I think when you have a staff member or a principal who is going to be wired, like they're dead set in doing their job how they think they should do their job. And their job is really listening to the students. But it is very easy to just choose to not listen to your students because you don't think their ideas are what is going to benefit other students, which is ironic because when you have a youth member saying, here's how we can help my other youth members, and they go, no, here's how I'm going to help the other youth members. It's like,
So I was, like, I feel like whenever you're, from personal experience, when I do address something, it usually just gets dismissed. So like if I do talk to someone about something which I have like a concern of, there isn't much of an action being put out to make it happen. I feel like it just gets dismissed, like, okay, we hear you, but okay. Like, I don't feel like there's any action going on to like address concerns of students around the schools.
Commissioner Clay, do you have your hand up?
Oh, yeah, one thing on that discussion is I wonder how much the individual teachers are supported in bringing issues from students on up, that they might not be very empowered by the administration to make those differences too. So you might have a champion that you can go and talk to, which is better than not having a champion. But that champion might not have much power in the greater thing until you can raise the issue in a bigger way where students gather together. The other thing I wondered was about bullying and harassing and how that, if that's an issue for LGBTQ, for women, for that matter, young women, people of color, and how that is, I know what's going on, but how you feel your high schools are addressing.
Students?
I remember,
Go ahead. Okay. I want to add that our school has something called the Restorative Justice Center, where like people who like students who have a conflict can like sit and talk about their problems without having to like, I guess, suffer consequences first. I think that's like something positive that our school does that maybe like help solve the root of the problem instead of just punishing students.
I remember it was asked like of our class, I think it was this year, just like we had an issue with like racial slurs being said by people who can't necessarily say it. And when addressed, they were like, oh yeah, like we have like just a basic like don't do that kind of thing going. And we were like, oh, okay. And as the years gone, it's like hasn't been very helpful. And I just found that like, at least with me and a lot of my like friends who are also POCs and ethnic, it's just kind of like for us, it's like, oh, it's just something we have to live with. And it's unfortunate, but like we don't, like there's no reason to report it because it's never been addressed fully. It's never given the respect that we believe it needs. So that's at least at like my school with my personal like friends and I.
And I know we have a youth council member who's not present tonight, but they have shared in their school that they experience very often that individuals don't respect each other's pronouns and actively refuse to accept and acknowledge them and choose to misgender and misidentify them. And that is a big problem that they are experiencing in their school and are not getting support from. And they believe it's a lack of education and understanding, but it's something that they have shared and wanted to share is very prevalent at their school.
I am, okay, hold on. I need to remember what I was gonna say. Oh, so I have a 504 plan and a health plan. So for the 504 plan, I have been called my fair share of the R word multiple times by students. I've had teachers hear it and just be like, but for the health plan, I have a specific experience. When I went to Timberline last year, I had to take the elevator. But you need a key to get into if you don't know. And I had a student follow me out of it and say, that B word isn't crippled. Why is she in there? And he followed me down the hallway. And I told multiple teachers about it and they went, yeah, people do suck. But it's when you reach like, because those teachers will advocate for you, but when they go to the higher powers, so like the principals, it's kind of, you just get told, and I think going off of what Sophie and Ebony were saying, like the whole just, that's just something you have to live with, or like, oh, that's just high schoolers, which isn't how that should be.
Sure, if I could just jump in really quickly, and this was the announcement that I was holding off earlier in the meeting, but I think it makes a lot of sense to talk about it right now, given the question and some of the responses that were talked about tonight. But I know that currently we are working on a joint meeting with the North Thurston Public School District from the city council and their school board. And as part of this meeting, and I will get the dates as soon as we set them so that this commission, as well as the youth council, is aware of them. Part of this commission, the plan, or this meeting, is to have a workshop and it to be have an element of community involvement with round tables to talk about some of the things that you all are talking about right this second. And so, you know, when we're talking about what are some opportunities in the future to provide this type of information, this is a really great community event that would be coming up to be able to talk about, you know, some of the concerns with safety that have been brought up here today specifically, and safety being a very broad, you know, category. And so as soon as we get those dates, I'll make sure to disseminate it to both parties. But again, this is going to be coming up where you'll have the opportunity to have a workshop directly with school board members as well as the city council and community members at the same time on this topic.
Great. I see Commissioner John Haywood, you have your hands up.
Hey, Kieran, I just wanted to ask if you thought that I guess the response to you trying to like submit a complaint basically, right, for this, like these aggressions happening to you, do you think that your answer would be different from what the response was from the teachers versus like one of the counselors like Rose, or do you think it would be the same? Like it's just like an institutional thing, hopefully that makes sense, versus like the position that your teachers are in, versus like the position that counselors have in the system. Hopefully I'm making sense here.
Like, do you think I'd get the same response from a counselor that I did a teacher?
I'm asking if you think you would get the same response of just like, you know, basically deal with it versus like an actual helpful and useful response, right, to these things happening to you.
I can confirm that it's a response I received from both a counselor and a teacher.
Okay, thank you.
I'd also like to add on from just like people calling each other like slurs in classrooms or other like harassment basically. By not actively discouraging it, I feel like it is encouraging it. When nothing happens to them, they get away with it. I mean, these people, like, they're gonna graduate high school and then they're gonna think that's okay, that it's okay to like disrespect people and stuff like that, and there won't be any consequences.
One thing I hear very often from this youth council is, well, we said something, but we didn't get any follow-up, right? And similarly, I think North Thurston highlighted not just doing something, but the transparency about it. So do we know these resources are there? And then how can we anticipate the follow-up, right? So if we are making a complaint, what can we expect to come of it? Because we've heard everyone say tonight, it doesn't feel good when you file a complaint or have a situation and it kind of stops there. So how can we improve those follow-ups and hear any actions were taken? I think is something this youth council has talked about a lot. The importance of follow through and transparency of the process.
Yeah. I definitely.
I'm sorry. I think this conversation has been very helpful. As Shannon indicated, we are looking forward to some joint meetings with the school board, city council, and to hear directly from you all. And to hear, a lot of unanimous opinion about certain things. That helps us in our particular questioning, like, you know, from a policy perspective, from a procedural perspective, why can't your complaints be better handled? Why aren't teachers or whomever taking advantage of those teachable moments when these things come up? And like you said, Madam, Mr. Mayor, if it's not corrected now, it become that kind of adult, and our society doesn't change. So thank you for your comments and your openness about it.
A question, River Ridge has, you guys have a what did you call your council where you guys get together and resolve a conflict?
Restorative justice center.
Correct. How is that? Are you seeing any results with that? Positive results, or do you feel that that is working?
I have no direct personal experience from it. It's just like something that I've seen our school do. So I don't think I can really like comment on, there's like any.
I've personally been in there and I think that it doesn't actually really help with conflicts because you're kind of put in a circle with a bunch of other students to resolve conflict and give opinion. And it's not well managed. I've been in there where I've been ganged up on and by two students and no one realized it until I had left. And it's kind of more stressful and having the other students there, I understand the idea of it, but at the same time, it just kind of like their own opinions make speaking up a little more stressful.
Facilitates that program? Is it facilitated by a staff member?
Yeah.
Commissioner Hegland?
First I wanted to say I agree with the youth mayor that the silence whenever these actions occur just breeds complicity. That's the message that our staff, art and faculty are sending to these students. But to Sadie's point, and then the last point that just was brought up is that oftentimes these policies that exist right now in North Thurston specifically put the onus on those who are transgressed against to follow up and to be a part of the mediative process instead of staff taking on that and seeking something that would undo the harm or seek to rectify it otherwise. Instead, it's all on the person who's perpetrated against or the victim in some cases to make amends, as it were, to come to the table. Or even sometimes I've seen ridiculously where they're like, well, have you talked to the student yourself first? I don't understand why somebody who's been transgressed against has to put themselves back in the situation. But let me get off my soapbox here. But yes, I understand that this is also, as far as policy is concerned, a very big problem. And I think the last person that was just speaking pointedly mentioned exactly that.
I also want to say it's really hard to get support from your school when certain things like immigration, it's getting made fun of when my parents are immigrants. And it's really hard to get support when things like the White House are making jokes, not to make any political statement, but it's hard to get support when it's well, this doesn't even support you in kind of a way, or they're making jokes about you too with immigration ASMR. So it's really hard to also just first of all speak up because it's well, they're not wrong in a way. So yeah, that's just my opinion.
There had been a hand up earlier down at the end of the table. I don't know. Fellow commissioner?
Oh, no, okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, what a great conversation, but I guess we are ending it with that we are going to have a joint meeting and that we can follow up and sounds like we have some work to do as far as follow up on some of these. So great. So moving on the agenda.
Thank you, Lacey Youth Council, for being here, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So commissioners who are staying here, why don't we do this? We're gonna just take a second and rearrange the room so we can all get back into it. So Commissioner Clay will be right back. used to having 17 people around the table. We have to adjust a few things to get the youth council around here. Thank you all.
You settled in?
That was awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was very good.
Okay, Veronica, you ready to give us an update on the EIB summit?
Yes, it's gonna be very quick. We're having it on May 10th, Saturday, May 10th, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's gonna be at the SPSCC campus here in Lacey. The group has, so the concept has evolved because of the group's preferences. So instead of having one large summit, we're gonna have three. And it's gonna be one per quarter, so one in May 10, the other one's gonna be late in the summer, and the other one at the end of the year. The first one is gonna be more about networking and getting to know each other, to work together, share resources. We wanna create a directory, and we also wanna create a shared calendar of events. It's being now open to all Thurston County entities or government nonprofits, schools, religious institutions, companies, etc. Whoever wants to participate who are working on DEIB. We're trying to find a name or a title that doesn't have the words DEI on it. It's been challenging, but we're talking about like welcome, something, we're not sure yet, so we're still working on the name. So once we have it, we'll report on that. We should have it. We're starting to meet every Monday now from 3 to 4:30. If anybody wants to join us, let me know and I'll forward the meeting. The lead is basically the League of Women's Voters. But then co-leads are Lacey, so me and the city of Lacey, and a consultant called Denise, we're working right now in goals, vision, mission, things that we want to accomplish, things like that. And then the next step is gonna be, how are we gonna distribute the workloads? So who's gonna be responsible of finding sponsorship? Commissioner John said that he's going to lead the marketing committee, so that's where we're at.
If I may add, one of the big challenges is, and something we discovered, early on with the new administration and with the non-support of DEIB and doing away with various programs, especially with the colleges and universities and others. We had members that say, I've been impacted. They're like, 1 week, they were fine, the next week, my program has been cut. So things are unfolding and changing week to week, and that is a challenge.
Hour to hour.
Yes, so that's one of the challenges is, how do we approach this thing with something we agree on this week and the way we're gonna do it based on changes that's out the window. So that's one of the challenges that we're really, dealing with now. How do we deal with this ongoing, these ongoing changes and in the summit and all, how do we address that? How are people dealing with it? What can be done as we move forward in dealing with these things? It's real life and it's moving on us. So that's the big challenge.
Commissioner Hegwood, you have your hands up.
Yeah, I just want Veronica, great summary, love it. I think you might have missed early part of the meeting whenever we were discussing possible names. My stance is specifically that I don't think we should be complying in advance to changing our name and getting rid of DEI in it. I think that it's very prudent for us to prepare for that reality, but I think unless we're threatened with like direct funding pooling or sponsorships dropping out, that we should maintain equity, belonging, and other associated quote buzzwords that are now trigger words for a lot of the majority culture in this country and the administration. I have no desire personally for us to try and cater it for a wider audience, as it were, unless we're forced to, I suppose. So yeah, specifically, I advocated that we do not comply in advance. I'd see it very prudent for us to come up with a name that we can switch to if we have to. But I don't think you were there for that part of the meeting, so I just wanted to mention that piece. And there was another part that's now escaping my mind. Oh, the second piece that I wanted to touch on was listening sessions, kind of like we've done here with the city of Lacey. We had a few folks question our ability to effectively run a summit unless we're doing the work and paying attention to what our community is telling us, what the issues are, and what's important to them. So the second meeting, or the second summit rather, that Veronica alluded towards is going to be around having a kind of community cafe style with, you know, a subject or what have you and a facilitator per table, and then kind of like collaborating and having those meaningful discussions on a smaller scale, and then exfiltrating that data to inform the work that we're doing as a summit committee or council going forward, was the other piece that I wanted to mention there.
I say just call it what it is. Don't use the acronyms. I think that's
100%
part of the
agree.
problem is people are using the acronym and not saying exactly what it is. And I also suggest, I heard this just recently, to add to it, A, either, well, I'm looking it up here, A for accessibility.
Accessibility.
But I think that A should be acceptance. That's the part that's missing. We've got the belonging, you know, the right and the belonging to be there, but people have to, I don't know if I wanna say have to acceptance, but there has to at some point be some type of accepting of it, you know? So, yeah, call it what it is. They're trying to take the acronym and have it mean something else, when if they actually stop and break down what it actually is. And I used to harp on people all the time when I used to work for the federal government, because although I grew up in the military, as Air Force, we didn't really live on post, so I didn't get to understand the whole how to tell the extended time on the clock or what all the rank and stuff is. I can't to this day do that, and now my husband's Army. But when I was at work and people would throw an acronym to me, I'd be like, what does that mean? And they couldn't tell me, but they knew what the acronym was. Break that down for me. Tell me what exactly that means, because coming from somebody who was pretty much raised in the military as a civilian, it may mean something else to me, but in the military, it actually means something else. So tell me, what does that mean? That's what we need to do, because I think they're trying to formulate what it means, and that's not at all what it means. So call it exactly what it is in long format, not acronym.
I heard
Keep
that
the title.
before. Commissioner.
That's a great point, Commissioner Hart. Ironically, I was at the YWCA's Let's Talk series this weekend, and Talana Reed was one of the keynote speakers there. For those of you who aren't familiar with the work, I know Dr. Jackson and Commissioner Clay particularly are familiar with her and her work, but I'm sure several others on the commission are as well. But she said the exact same thing, that, you know, we need to, you know, get away from just using the acronym and saying it out loud and going the long version. To it creates a different conversation, right? Whenever people say that they're against DEI versus what is it about inclusion that you have a problem with? What is it about equity you don't like? What about diversity offends you? Right? These are different questions than like, what's wrong with DEI? And so I think that's excellent advice, Commissioner Hart. And I think that Veronica, perhaps you and I could brainstorm on, and Commissioner Clay, or excuse me, Commissioner Brown, about names that include the long version of that, for our events, all or some of them at least. And like I mentioned already, right, I'm 100% the hill that I choose to die on right now is that we shouldn't be taking out equity at a minimum from the title of this event unless we're forced to, because of economical reasons, right? We live in a system that values white supremacy, and we have to make bargains with this system on occasion. And I understand that I'm not letting perfect be the enemy of good here, but I think that as long as we can, this should not be something that I want to comply with in advance. but that's just my stance. I'd be curious to see what anybody else on the commission feels about this.
Right there with you.
Annie?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think that we should be changing our direction in that way or trying to make it more acceptable. We we're a voluntary group, and we don't really have that upper level. I mean, the White House can't tell us what to do. I think we should stand up because we're able to. I would like to see a list of the organizations that are involved now, so that I can have some sensitivity for some who are being really affected, and I don't want to, maximize that the scrutiny on them exactly. Let's see. I think if some of those people are affected, I wonder if they can meet not on company time, basically, but after hours where their input could, they wouldn't be as nervous about their input. The other question I had, Veronica, was I've been talking to Orca Books about having a book stand with books, kids' books, adult books about diversity, about inclusion. And so I'm wondering, with this new setup of having quarterly, if that is something that really makes sense for the networking, the first one, and how should I talk with them about it? Do you have an idea about that?
One of the reasons why we chose this location in part is because they have like a big aisle where we can have the tables for orcas and other vendors. So I would like to keep it, but we haven't touched on that yet. We're covering other topics today. So I will ask them and I will follow up, but now we have the date at least. There's, it's been changing, evolving, and it was very difficult without a date and allocation, like a firm location to plan much. So now that have some direction, I will follow up on that and I know, I still remember. Nobody said anything about no doing it, so I would like to keep it, but I will circle back once we have a confirmation.
Sounds like when I meet them, I have an appointment in a couple of weeks to sit down with them, that I can maybe narrow their time. If it's just a networking thing, it's not a big speaker and a big summit, then maybe it's like the noon time, the lunchtime period that they could
That's what I
come.
was thinking, that at least during lunchtime, people could go and see their table and their books.
Yeah, I think it would be really good to pull those kind of resources out for people to look at. Okay.
I was gonna say, going back to the changing the name thing, I think when we give into that, that's us becoming part of the problem. So I think it's really important that we stand our ground as long as we can, because we don't want to turn into what we're trying to fight against.
And I would just, a question, as these planning meetings are going on, the whole idea, a concept that I've been harping on about an upfront statement of the problem. In whatever structure, whether it's quarterly, whatever format is being pursued. We've got to know what we're dealing with here in Thurston County, and to what degree do certain things exist. We could be doing very well in some areas and just continue to support that. In the areas where we have the greatest amount of problems, that's what we attempt to identify and coalesce our resources around. But is that part of the conversation at the planning meetings? Because, you know, we're three major municipalities and a county, and then other smaller cities that make up Thurston County. So to what degree, you know, we don't need to spend time discussing diversity other than accepting and acknowledging that it's here. But when it comes to inclusion and equity, and that's the problem. To what degree aren't people of diverse backgrounds and cultures not feeling included and accepted? And, you know, so is that part of the plan? Who's pulling together that statement of need? You know, the demographic profile of Thurston County is now thus and so. And that has increased by this percentage over the last 10 years. The projection is that in the next 10 years, it's to look like, you know, that kind of intro, so that everybody sitting at those cafe tables and all, we've all got a general understanding of what we're trying to address, so that it's not individual agendas being brought to the tables. We've got a unified agenda we've agreed upon, and we're gonna tackle it. We're gonna do the best we can, given what's happening nationally, given what's happening politically, but this is our community, this is where we live, and here are the challenges we're facing. So how are we gonna go about it? And so, you know, now we identify all the various groups that's working in some aspect of DEI. But we all have some general agreement or understanding rather of what the problems are and why we can't allow them to go on and persist. We just heard from our students, you know, they can't get any relief in school. They come forward, they complain, they let, you know, well, you know, that's the way it is among high schoolers. Yeah, it can't be.
And
Those
that's
high
gonna
schoolers
translate
become the
right
adults in the
into-
community. And those adults will have that, you know, so what's the problem? Where is the problem, and how do we bring our collective energy and resources together to say, these are the things we are not going to just roll over and play dead about in our community. You know, here's the problem, here's the extent to which it exists as best we can determine. And here are some approaches and some strategies where we're going to begin to address it. And we can't leave out the schools in that. It's back to the school piece, you know. So in the planning, is there a portion of that first meeting, regardless of what other quarter meetings that take place, that first meeting, that we're getting a common sense of understanding of the problem so that we can move forward trying to address those things that's been laid out there? And I'm not at the meetings, I'm not tuned in, so I'm asking the questions of those of you who are there at the planning table, because I keep bringing this up, but I'm not hearing that it's being incorporated in the agenda. The other part of it has to be the other commissions. We're Lacey's commission. What about Olympia's commission? Tumwater's commission, Thurston County's commission? Do we have any common themes among us? I mean, I don't know. We don't talk to them.
So what I'm hearing Veronica say is that they are going to talk about their mission, vision, what is it you are trying to do with your group? And then all those folks who are representing their respective groups, like those entities that you mentioned, and that you're opening up for more to join, like state agency, nonprofit, and all those folks. Are they bringing the issues that they want to discuss as collectively? Is that how you are kind of envisioning? So that perhaps you need to do a little more active outreach, bringing more of diverse voices where they can bring and represent the particular issues. For example, like from us, from Equity Commission and Lacey, we'll bring our issues because you're forming this group with a collective buying power there, I'm not sure, that you will be working together, I guess. I mean, that's what I'm envisioning.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and if I may, what Dr. Jackson said, is great. Working on our mission statement and goal, what we want to accomplish. And with the opening speaker or whatever, those are points that we can have that person share and cover as a group. But the thing that, you know, I've advocated for, and John has supported me, is the municipalities having their time. together. Because we look at our commission as being one of the leading commissions in Thurston County. And Olympia, they are working on some things, Tumwater's working on some things, the county is working on some things. Us coming together and as a group, look at how can we do some things, you know, similar as we advocate for change, for inclusion, for all of these things that we're doing and that Olympia wants to do and Tumwater wants to do. We want to put that group together as a focus. Then the other community organizations, they have in their time to strategize on what they want to do as a group. But mixing them in, trying to have a conversation would be counterproductive. I think we have a particular focus as municipalities versus the nonprofits versus other groups in the community. So with us strategizing separately and then pulling that information together and then move to the next step and then sharing with more workshops, more learning, those types of things. But the other thing to round it out would be to report back to the community. We've done all of these things, we've made all these plans, sharing with the community. Here's what we've discovered, here's what we've talked about, here's the strategy we've developed. And here's our report out to you, and here's how you can now, you know, participate. And here's how we hope to impact you as a community member. And so that way we would go, you know, full circle. Gathering information, you know, we're collecting information. I'm sure other municipalities are collecting demographic information and other things, pulling that in, but then having a report out to the community and having them be able to participate. We kind of started out early on, the meetings were, let's include everybody. Let's invite the entire community. And we were looking at 100, 150 people being, you know, in the room. I saw that as being counterproductive because we don't have our act together. How can we bring the community in and they're asking us questions and we're saying, well, we're working on that. Or we're thinking about that. Oh, we'll probably get to that. That would be counterproductive. So we did pull away from having the entire community to be a part of it. Plus there are, you know, security issues with having the entire community involved with this climate that we have now. So I think we're on the right path, but it's a matter of shoring up the upfront stuff, building the goals and objectives and what we want to accomplish upfront, sharing data, laying the foundation for what we have in Thurston County, what we're facing in Thurston County. Then we work on strategy to address them. But strategies where the municipalities can support each other, mutually support each other, because we overlap so much.
And this is the initial meeting.
Yes, the initial meeting.
So that's on, yeah.
And then this is
Set
also.
the tone for the future.
It also kind of, in thinking what I was saying earlier about the acronym, it reminds me of the ACA versus Obamacare. I don't think people actually understand.
The distinction.
Yeah, I don't think they understand who is being affected. DEIBA is everybody. Because at some time, at some point, they're going to be affected by it, you know, whether they're a small city like Tenino, Rainier, some of the small, more rural areas that may have people that are like, you know, DEI, but it's like, you're retired, maybe, you live out there on property and you might be disability. Do you understand that that is you we're talking about? Not necessarily me, you know, that we're talking about. So I think definitely understanding what it is needs to be a part of the first meeting to really have that understanding.
So I'm going to now allow Commissioner Clay to talk, and she has her hands up a little bit here.
Yeah, what was I gonna say? What I don't want to see is we have had two League of Women Voter panels where we each said who we are and what we do. That I hope we've moved beyond that, and it sounds like we have. I like the making the goals, working out what our next steps are, and then what you said, Cliff, about getting the information out to the community, which then preps the community for the community cafe style thing that they need to know some of the things that are rolling along and that we want them to be coming, thinking about it coming. So I'm supportive of those pieces of it. And yeah, and thanks.
Okay. So, yeah, going back to Dr. Jackson's question about the, how the committee or the summit will address some of the issues that are important to us. I think we still continue on, and I think that we will just utilize them at some point. Help us to get our message further and so forth. But I think that we still have to be solid in with our own issues. We still have to just keep going of what we are doing, and then not like thinking that their event will be the cure for all. And that they can do it all for some of the
Yeah.
issues.
John's hand is up.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, Commissioner Jackson, I just want to say that I share your frustrations. I think that while I think that we're doing great work planning for the summit, I also think that we're doing a lot of talking, not a lot of doing, but that's just my own impatience. But I hear you though, in specifically the metrics that we need to be presenting attendees with, right? To make sure that we're all sharing a common vision. We're all there to tackle a common goal. And I think twofold, there's two great places for that and I would say that, let me not get ahead of myself here. You bringing this point to our commission meeting last time, I believe myself, Cliff, and Veronica brought it up in the Summit Planet meeting immediately following that. And that's kind of what's informed the current vision as it is versus just like one summit where we're just kind of throwing everybody together and like whatever is happening and we're trying to manage chaos. Instead, it's become a lot more methodical. And so to your point though, I think the networking piece and the larger summit, which would be step 1 and step 3 of these summits, would be the most appropriate place for a shared vision and a mission statement and statistics on here's what we view as an issue in this county. We're all here to solve this problem. This is what we're here to tackle and discuss. Here is the problems that are affecting our community. The first one of that, right, is the networking event, which is just bringing every single organization. We've discussed like 250 different organizations. So you're talking 250 to 300 people, and that's on the smaller side of things for Thurston County in various aspects of this work, all coming together and just sharing like a quick blurb of what they do and where they're at. That in and of itself is going to be rather messy. But I think that it starts to kind of sow the seeds of what this collaboration would look like. And never had anything like this before. And then having those conversations and also being informed by the listening session, which would be our second gathering or summit, if you will, I think will change what our larger summit is supposed to be. Again, you and I could both go out there and tell them what we think the problem is and give them data to back it up. But I think that you and I both also know that listening to our community members and understanding what our community's priorities are in these realms is also important. So using that to inform what our mission statement and purpose and scope looks like for the larger summit, I think is paramount. And that's where the listening session and kind of like the cafe style came into play. Hopefully I'm making sense here. And I think that's why it was seen as a necessary step in order for us to get government organizations out of the way. We already take up enough space as it is, and just have our people in the community come together and discuss real issues and have hard, intimate conversations. Hopefully I'm not just talking myself in circles here. I would still be curious though, Commissioner Jackson, specifically what your thoughts are on hopefully me doing some justice to paraphrasing what your statements to us have been and your questions, how we've incorporated that into what our plan looks like.
How would I propose it?
What your perspective is on how we've incorporated your questions and your insights into what we're doing for the summit.
And maybe just add an addition, and Commissioner Hedgewood, I think you did a great job of summarizing this, but I think I just wanna make sure that I'm repeating, that I'm understanding it, and maybe just seeking a bit of clarification here. So I think what I've heard through the discussion is that, they're taking step one to build a networking. And I would highlight that this is actually one of the goals that is in the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging strategic plan right now, is to finish that, what we called a community connectivity tool. But this is a really good opportunity for us to be able to collect all of that information of, who's doing what in the community. Commissioner Hedgewood, you mentioned 250 plus potentially organizations across Thurston County who may be involved, and just getting that directory of, who is involved in what areas. Is it, do they have youth involvement? Are they involved with, military families, et cetera? Just having that mapped out. That is one of the goals that is currently identified in the diversity plan. And then what I heard was the second step was building off of that, of having a conversation of, what's going on in the community, which Commissioner, Vice Chair Jackson, I think one of the things I heard you saying is we need to set the baseline of context. And I think that could be a good avenue for, hey, where are we right now? What's going on? And what is the community kind of temperature thinking? What are their perspectives? What are they dealing with? What are they experiencing? And then the third part of that is kind of the culmination of all of those conversations of what can we work towards collectively, building the network, hearing the context and hearing the perspectives, and then what can we do moving forward. And I think, Commissioner Brown, you brought up, part of that needs to be talking about these different types of entities that we have and them being able to work together, because recognizing that they may have more crossover in what they can do, but that there is a real benefit in hearing what each other is doing, because we do work in so many different elements of the community, especially here in city government. So I think I just want to make sure that I kind of summarize what I was hearing. Is there anything that I missed from that?
Yeah, one more thing, Shannon, that was perfect, actually, way better than I did, I think. But I would just also like to add that the other intention is to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts and that we're pooling our resources to kind of all paddle in the same direction versus trying to, invent the wheel by ourselves. Because a lot of people, like you mentioned, right, we're all doing different work, but a lot of us are doing different work in the same areas where there's a lot of potential for collaboration. And so coming together first, right, obviously, like you mentioned, was just another piece I wanted to mention in there.
So do we have other dates for the next two things, or will that be, like, I know we have the May 10th, then we got fall and summer, or excuse me, summer and fall. If we set those dates so that we can capture those people on that first one so that they can kind of make plans or whatever to attend throughout, by the time we get to the fall one, will we be able to culminate that and bring things all together full circle, it sounds like? Will we be able to complete that at that time?
I would think that would be more up to the committee to come up with.
That's the plan.
Okay.
We went from one gigantic summit period,
Yeah,
saying we can't do all of this in
Not in one day.
in a few hours.
yeah, I like
we
the
break
breaking it
resources
up.
that we have, which is almost
Right.
nothing.
Yeah, I like the breaking it up. I think that's a good call.
Mhm.
I am not against the breakup.
Mhm.
I'm just saying before the breakup happens, let's make sure we all have a shared understanding of the problem and the extent to which it exists. So when we hear from 150 people in a room, someone might ask the question, well, why do we still have the problems we're having and we have this many folk out there working on it?
Right.
But in the plan to go from big to smaller groups, that's perfectly okay. I just want to make sure that the beginning, adequately serves the purpose so that before people disperse and go in separate directions, they aren't out there on separate agendas. We've all understood. That's all I'm trying to.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm done
That
with
just
that.
reinforces some of the conversation we've been having, so that is good. That brings it more into focus, and now we can, zero in on those types of things up front. The military, we say, bottom line up front.
Yeah, the bluff. I heard that all the time. I was like, what is that?
She don't know what that is.
Thanks for indulging me.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to,
That was a short update.
right, are we ready? So, yeah, community events and celebration overview. Shannon, please.
Great. Well, good evening, commissioners. I'm not used to being this late in the agenda, so it's really good to hear all of the voices with Youth Council earlier. I'm here tonight to talk about community events, and I just want to give a little background of, why we're here talking about this now. This came up as part of the meeting with the city council when we met to talk about the 2025 work plan. There were a couple of council members who wanted us to take a look at some additional community events. And that was something that we did identify as work that was going to happen later in 2025, so Q3 and Q4. And so in the interim, having that meeting with the council meeting, we've also met with a couple of community groups, and Commissioner Hedgewood can provide an update on one of the community groups that we met with that are looking to do a Thurston County Pride here in just a second. But what I wanted to do for tonight is just provide kind of a very high level background of kind of what we do with city community events, and then what could be some possibilities to do some additional research on and to look into. And so not here tonight for any decision making, but more for just some direction that's maybe something that the commission wants to take a deeper dive as far as thinking of the future of potential community events and celebrations here in the city of Lacey. So I want to ground this in the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging strategic plan, since this is the guiding document, policy document for the work that we're doing. And so I want to highlight a couple of areas where this comes out. And so here under the goal area of program services and, program policies and services, under city services, it says to provide services that are responsive, transparent, accountable, equitable, and welcoming, with an emphasis on providing a safe, trusted environment for underserved community members. We also have, under the same goal area, under the subsection of acknowledgements and events, to recognize and support diversity and inclusiveness through acknowledgement statements, public art, events, programs, and the use of city platforms to amplify community voices. And specifically, one of the goal areas we identified was support the number and support of events and programming that highlights cultural diversity, and that those increase. Finally, the last area that I want to highlight in the strategic plan comes under the goal area of community access and engagement, specifically under the sub area of relationships, where it talks about enhancing relationships and opportunities in the community for continued dialogue and knowledge sharing among the city, partner entities, and community members through events, programs, forums, art, etc. And specifically pointing to our benchmark here, number 6, which is the city engagement and non-city event increases. So like I mentioned earlier, this is something that was identified in our work plan for 2025, which the council adopted for us to start working on. You can see here in Q3 under engagement, it talks about research and consider community celebrations, including LGBTQIA+ and Latino events. And then you can see in Q4 making recommendations on community celebrations. So I know this group received, and it's been almost 2 years, but we did have our Parks, Culture, and Recreation team come on in here and talk about some of the community events that the city puts on. So if you want a thorough review of that, I would recommend looking at the April 24th, 2023 meeting in the PDFs that is hyperlinked. So if you want to go back and listen to that, you can listen to the entire conversation with our Parks, Culture, and Recreation team. Just to highlight a couple of events, although I know you all are pretty well familiar with them. Some events that get put on by our Parks Department include the Cultural Celebration, our Spring Fun Fair, the Fireworks Spectacular that happens on the 3rd of July, the Lacey in Tune, which runs throughout the entire summer, and that's coupled with play in the parks. There's Children's Day in the fall, the Light and Parade in the winter, and programs like Lacey Loves to Read in the winter. So there's a variety of events that our Parks Department puts on, and a lot of these take a lot of resources because our Parks Department are planning them from the very start through the duration of the program to cleaning up the event. And so it's really resource intensive to put these on. We do have a couple of programs that exist right now for community groups to access to help put on events. And so I want to give you a high level overview of what they are. So I want to point some attention to our lodging tax funding. So lodging tax is a excise tax that gets applied to folks who stay in hotels or Airbnbs, or if we had campsites. And it's a 4% tax. And this tax gets collected and state collects it and then redistributes it based on how many overnight stays there are. We currently have a committee here at the city. This is our lodging tax committee that they make recommendations to the city council on how those dollars that are collected through this tax should be spent. However, those dollars need to meet state requirements on how they're spent. And so allowable uses include tourism marketing and operations of special events and festivals designed to attract tourists and specifically designed to put heads in beds. So the idea is that you're attracting individuals from greater than 50 miles or more or out of state to come to your place and then stay in hotels, generating more revenue and then having more dollars to do events like that. And that's what this graph is showing you around here. You can see visitors travel for business and leisure. They stay overnight at one of our hotels. They pay this lodging tax, municipalities receive it, and then they're able to put on these types of events, which then in turn draw people coming back into the community. The other uses are, in addition to the two that I already mentioned, are supporting the operations and capital expenditures of tourism-related facilities, whether these are owned and operated by a municipality or owned and operated by a nonprofit organization. So every year we get these dollars and part of the budget process, this committee meets and they take a look at how much funding is available and they make recommendations on where that funding should go. And then the city council adopts the funding for this particular program. So what I've included here are just a couple of, this is actually 2025. So this is what's in our budget right now for LTAC dollars and the types of events and programming that these dollars are going to. We also have a couple of other city grant programs that are, I guess I want to highlight them because they are open, they are transparent, and they are accessible. So we've got our neighborhood matching grant program. So this program exists if you live in an HOA or in an informal community. You can apply for dollars that get matched by your HOA to do particular types of projects. This grant program is actually opening right now. So if you have an HOA that may be interested, I would highly recommend looking into this program. The program receives all of the applications and then there's a subcommittee that reviews them to make sure that they all meet, if it's permitting or city codes and make sure that they are allowable projects. Very similarly, and I know you all are more familiar with this one because it's come directly before this body, is our Human Services Grant Program. So much like our grant program for neighborhoods, this is a application that opens and nonprofits are able to apply for it. There is a determined time where you can fill out an application, it gets reviewed, there's an advisory board that makes review and then puts those recommendations in front of the council for human service dollars to go out into the community. We currently, in addition to having our city events and programs, we also work with partners in the community for Juneteenth, and we've been working with the Fred U. Harris Lodge now. I believe we're going on year 4. Does that seem right at this point?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Year 4, and so I know their planning process has just started off. But this has been a very successful community event, and one of the reasons I want to highlight it that it's been incredibly successful is that it has been a long-standing event in the community with community members who have been engaged in building and developing this and making it sustainable prior to the city's involvement, and the city is just a partner. This is a Fred U. Harris Lodge event that we help support. So when we're talking about our, community and community events and community programming, some things that we need to be considering is, number one, we have limited resources. So as I mentioned previously, when we're talking about, city events, they're very labor intensive and resource intensive, and it's really hard with the capacity that we have to expand our portfolio of city led events. We also want something that is going to be sustainable and that there is community support. And oftentimes, like with the Fred U. Harris Lodge, we find that the most sustainable types of community events are ones where there are community members and nonprofits that are backing and have created those types of events. And then finally, as we're thinking about, what could be some programs, we want to make sure that it's transparent and that it's equitable. So creating systems that are open and that support procedural and outcome fairness. So, making sure that people know when they may be able to access, any type of programs, when they may, what the steps are for that application. Is it going to require X? Does it get reviewed by who? And when can we anticipate that there would be some sort of response? So, with all of this in mind, one of the things that we've just kind of at a very, again, high level have been thinking about is, given the limited resources that currently exist, wanting to build that community support and have that sustainability and also have that transparency and equity is the potential of looking at creating some type of community event grant pilot program. So the idea would be that there would be an application process for community groups to apply specifically for events that meet whatever determined kind of criteria that we'd be looking for. And in particular, one of the things we'd want to research and look into is, cultural programming, because that's one of the things we've heard from the council. And then to have a program that is well advertised and open for community members and nonprofits to be able to apply to. So a couple of examples of this, I've got the City of Bend, Oregon here. They have the Community Sponsorship and Grant Program. You can see here that they put this money aside every 2 years. They go through an application process. They've got really clear principles for who can apply, what types of programming can apply, clear eligibility criteria, what the deadlines are, request to be responsored. They have event reporting, so you can't just access these dollars. You also have to talk about, what happened, who was there, and then a clear list of awardees. You can see up here, I've just taken a snapshot of their policies. It is a several page document, and it really outlines, who, what, and why organizations can get money for these types of cultural community sponsorships and grants. Another example, although one that takes us across the Pacific here, is one in New Zealand from the city of Wellington, and it's similar in its concept where it has community events and sponsorships. And it talks about sponsorship objectives, and it has very clear criteria for any organizations that may be interested in moving forward with this program, and an application process outlined very clearly. Third example that I included in here was Broward County, Florida, and they have an arts and cultural festival and special event sponsorship. And just like the programs before it, they have clear who's eligible, who's not eligible, and then what that review criteria and what kind of thresholds you need to make to be eligible to even apply for the programming. So that's kind of a brief just overview of our programs, and then kind of one concept that we had. And so I really tonight just wanted to get some thoughts and feedback from you all on the idea of pursuing this in more research and coming back with this body with much more details. Tonight was just a 30,000 foot general overview.
So I have a couple of questions. So unprogrammed things like doing Martin Luther King, you know, as commissioners, we went out and spoke at two schools, two North Thurston schools, a middle school and then a high school. How is that like reported back to the city council that these are some things we're doing on behalf of the city?
How's that report? That's a really good question. And so with our work plan, every time we put one of these work plans together, we go through every item that has occurred during these meetings. And so since you've reported out on these, they are items that get listed into activities that the
Good.
Commission on Equity
And then
does.
other questions, programs like, so like a financial literacy academy. So if we did that say went over a 6-month period where we bring in, you know, participants, you know, the professionals to facilitate various workshops over a period of time. At the end, they get a completion of a certificate of completion or something along those lines. If that's a type of program we would apply or support for.
I think that would depend on the criteria that gets
Yeah.
established, but I would say what I heard you just mention there would fit well within our human services grant program. And again, that's totally dependent on what program gets set up here, but I think just right now, I would say if you have an organization that's doing that, to take a look at our next funding round for human services grants.
We have hands up from Commissioner Hegwood.
Hey, folks. So on subject about the grant program, I would suggest that reviewing, or rather using our sponsorship criteria as an outline. We've already, gone over this for various reasons. Most recently, I believe it being revamped was whenever we removed Chick-fil-A as a presenting sponsor for the Lacey Fun event, or the Lacey and Toon event, excuse me. And I think that that's a good roadmap for us for qualifications for this grant program. I also don't see this grant program being implemented in time for it to be of use for the city of Lacey to jump in on a Pride event for this year, for example, or even a Hispanic Heritage Month program this year. I think the grant program's a great idea. And we definitely should encourage more discussion and research on this topic and presenting that to the city council once we have a kind of more robust product to present to them. But as a separate topic, how, maybe perhaps just this year, right, as like a one aside or an ad hoc kind of support situation of making these other events that we receive clear direction from the city council on pursuing.
Well, and I think again, Commissioner Hedward, thanks for bringing that up of, the council did say, hey, to take a look at this in 2025 and, later Q3, Q4, and we are starting the conversation now. And that anything that, programmatically gets created like this needs to have some sort of budget associated with it. And that would come from the council appropriating dollars for that. And so that is something that, in some cases can happen within the budget year, but often happens with the next budget cycle of going to council and making sure that we bring this forward as a potential, 2026 budget request.
Yep, no, totally appreciate that and understand the process. I guess what I was saying was, I understand that we have to go through this, and again, creating these metrics for us to be able to present to the community, make even more events happen, which would be amazing. And actually having like a solid budget for it would be wonderful. But I would propose even something more radical, I suppose, for this year if we were trying to make that happen. Again, given the input that we received from the city council, if it's not there, it's not there. We can't make it happen regardless. And as you mentioned, that's ultimately not our decision as a commission, right? It's obviously the decision of the city council, but it is within our purview to ask the city council as a recommendation for support for other events this year, specifically ones that we've been given direction on, I guess is what I was trying to say.
Okay. Anything else? Should we
Well, I guess I just want some general direction, commissioners, that you know, come back with some further refinement of this concept for future discussion.
Yes,
That sounds
and
good.
yeah, and you know, the application process, kind of the requirements. Is, you know, something that's important. As so we can think about some things that may qualify, you know, an organization that may want to apply, you know, for this support.
And is it just?
So we have a both hands up
organization
from,
or- Is it just organizations or is this people that are just putting on different community events? Because I mean, you've got that all day long, but does it have to be, cause I know in the beginning of your talk, you were talking about like, I saw the multicultural and tree lighting and parades and summer shows, but then you've got people that put on other types of events that are like trade shows or just community events for smaller local businesses that have booths and stuff, like kind of like things that I go to. Or like maybe I could see if somebody wanted to start a farmer's market here in Lacey. I guess I'm trying to figure out what type of event would qualify, and maybe that's.
but I thought that would be part of the criteria building
Mhm,
steps that you will go through.
mhm.
And you are asking for our feedback as far as what could it all be part of?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that would absolutely be something that this body would take a look at and review of what would be that criteria. And, you know, from my perspective of starting off the process of doing the research, it would be with the idea that you would be looking to create community programs. So, you know, events that have a cultural element or, you know, especially just based off of what was in the work plan with, you know, identifying, you know, an LGBTQIA or Latino or some other community celebration. That would kind of serve as the basis. But that would come back to this group for further refinement and discussion.
Cause I could easily see something like something for military families, um. Something for women, you know, specifically, something for special needs and older individuals. But I don't know of any that are out there specifically for this area, but.
So let's go to Commissioner Clay and then Hegwood.
Yeah, I am all in favor of community grants if we have some money to hand out, and it will be a little while to create the criteria and the direction for that. See, we have gotten a lot of response from community and from some of the council members about pride celebrations. I would I wonder if we can get permission to have a City of Lacey banner that citizens, community members can walk behind in the Holy Parade, that it's already happening, well established. We don't need to do something exactly like them, but I would love to see the City of Lacey stand up for LGBTQ trans, especially the trans community, in that kind of way. And so I don't know, Shannon, if we could, decide to officially ask the city or for that, or that's one idea that could happen this year.
And I think, Commissioner Clay, that's a really good point of, you know, we're talking about creating a grant program, again, with the idea of it being transparent, with it being open, with it being accessible, right? And I think there's a difference though between the idea of creating something for city use at community outreach, right? So I think there are some possibilities that we could take a look in, and I can get some more information to the council. And I think this also is part of, you know, Commissioner Hedgewood's question of what can we do, you know, in the near term, I think we can certainly look at what could be some community engagement that we can participate in. Which it sounds like it is kind of the direction you're asking for a little bit more information, and that could maybe serve as some sort of gap between, you know, creating any type of future programming and what we can do now.
Mhm, mhm. And then I think with a community grant, uh, there is not an established, you know, as established as the Fred U. Harris Lodge, but it would give time for the Lacey queer community to gather some strength together to ask for one of those grants for some kind of celebration.
And I think this may be a good point for, on that note, Commissioner Clay, if Commissioner Hedgewood, if you want to talk a little bit about the event that we heard a little bit more about last week, I think that would be a great thing to provide this commission with an update.
Sure thing. So the short version, without us being here for the next hour and a half, me talking about it. And Shannon, please reel me in as much as you need to, because you know my perspective is like we should be in on this yesterday. But so Lady L, LaDonna is her name. She had the first Yelm Pride Parade in 2023, and she, because of various reasons, decided to have the next year's Pride event at the Thurston County Fairgrounds last year, which Shannon or I had heard about happening. I heard about it after the fact, and so I was fortunate enough to be able to find her contact information to bring her in for us to all meet together and kind of assess what the event looks like, what her history and background is as far as like putting on events and productions. And turns out she has a very long and storied history in production and what's what we're looking for here.
Coordinating events.
Yeah, events, coordinating, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
all types of events, like from everything from, you know, just like vendors showing up and kind of creating like a farmer's market kind of thing to putting on pageants. Show business is what I was looking for. She has a very long history in that specifically, but also in hosting these larger scale and smaller scale events. And I really appreciate Commissioner Clay bringing up our partnership with the Fred U. Harris Lodge, and Shannon presenting on it earlier as well, that this, I think, is a good roadmap and model for us to follow for potential for the City of Lacey's involvement with Lady L's Productions. No, Productions is right. Shannon, what was her name? Do you remember? What was the name of her business?
I think that is it. I think you're right.
Is it Productions? Okay. And I guess in this grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter at this point, but there's potential for, I think, the City of Lacey to follow the example that the city had with the Fred U. Harris Lodge, which is splashing onto an existing event that's proven to be successful, that represents a diverse community that's already happening in our community, and we're able to partner with them to make it bigger, better, more possible, invite more of the community members, get the word out. There's several different levels and echelons of need that the city could help them achieve. They already have the venue on their own, the space is on their own, all the, you know, performers and the vendors essentially, or everything else is effectively covered. Like, we really just have to show up. And we could really scale our involvement based on buy-in from this commission and a recommendation to the city council, I think. And, you know, we could be anything from just having a booth, which I will say that she's already said that, you know, nonprofits and non-governmental or governmental organizations will be able to show up free of charge, because her kind of philosophy on that is to not keep the people from those representing them effectively. But, you know, anything from that to the City of Lacey donating X amount of funds to make it more successful, and to making it bigger, larger, have a larger advertising budget, advertising in different venues like the banner over College Ave, or in our newsletter, online, etc. There's so many different opportunities for the city to get involved. And as I mentioned earlier, the grant program, I think, would fit really well within what the needs for her event looks like right now. But I think we all know that this is not going to come to fruition before, because the event is the 14th and 15th of June at the Thurston County Fairgrounds. So there's no way that any of this is going to come to fruition before then. And so I think it's up to us, kind of like Shannon alluded to earlier, that there may be some other options for us to consider in the short term to meet those needs and to get the city involved and to get the word out for this year. And then next year, may look completely different. And the same was true with the Fred U. Harris Lodge Juneteenth event. The first year we kind of just jumped in and tried to help out the best we could. And obviously we aren't trying to take over this event, just like we weren't trying to take over that one, but, partnering with it and making it bigger and better and more successful and getting the word out to more people, to have more involvement from the community and bringing people together, I think is kind of the name of the game.
I think it's more so about getting that out there, because I can even let you guys know about a gentleman who I know, who is kind of going along the veins of what the youth brought to us earlier. He has a nonprofit that focuses on homeless street youth. So that would be one. But I don't think he does events, but he has things that he does that he tries to get them out and active and find homes and stuff for them, because we don't have a lot of options for kids who live out on the street. I think there's only one home in Thurston County, so that may be something that we may have to, that we could consider as well. So, yeah, I'm glad you put out the stuff about the different places that you research. I'd like to look at those and maybe try putting together some type of application for consideration.
I think again, Commissioner Hart, that program would make a really, potential good fit with our human services grant program that is already existing.
Okay.
And so I'd certainly say to look into that a little bit more. And I think the difference between, this potential grant program and that program is that's really about providing direct services to community members in need. And this one would be about, providing community events, specifically with, kind of a cultural tie. But that all depends on the eligibility criteria that this group would make some recommendations on in the future.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next steps.
So next steps, it sounds like I will take a look into researching this a little bit more and come back with some additional information for you all to review and provide some feedback on a potential program that potentially would move forward for, a council consideration at a later date. At the same time, maybe just doing a little bit more research on what would be some possibilities for some community engagement in the next couple of months, and get some more information for you all at the next commission meeting.
Okay. That sounds great. I mean, that'll give us a little more time for us to think about it too. I'm sorry, John, did you have something to say?
I just wanted to add on to that. I forgot to mention some of the statistics for Lady L's event last year, which was titled Thurston County Pride of 2024. She had 1,500 people in and out of the fairgrounds in, I think, a period of 5 hours, I want to say. And that was with her, operating on virtually a zero budget, non-existent budget. She has some sponsorships from Glamazon, which, for those of you who aren't familiar with, it's a LGBTQ plus affiliated version of Amazon employees. So she made all that happen by herself, effectively. So just imagine how much bigger it could be, with even just like the slightest advertisement, and the kind of resources and connections that the city of Lacey has. Yeah. And I was also, Shannon, to the point about us doing for the research on the grant stuff. My initial reason why my hand was raised was I was going to ask if you would like a motion for us to endorse that, or if it sounds like just kind of general consensus is plenty for us to move forward with that. But it seems like we've already addressed that.
Yep, at this point, Commissioner Hedgewood, just general consensus is good. So I've got some good direction here.
Great. Thank you, and maybe we are ready to move on to the next on the agenda, which would be the commissioner's report. So Cliff, oh, it's not here. Annie, Makita and John Hegwood, you all will participate in Lacey Cultural Celebration Update. Do you have anything to share with us?
It was really good. A lot of people that came through on that day. A lot of the youth, I was really happy to see a lot more youth participation that day at the booths. So I don't know if I'm sure we had something like that last year or in previous years, but this year, no? Wow.
That was a new addition.
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked by a lot of, I don't know who I was expecting. I think I was just expecting you maybe to be there the whole day, but just to be able to see a lot of the different youth come through and participate in at the booth was really great as well. And of course, like every year, there was a lot of the community that showed up, a lot more people that would come and engage in what it is that we had to offer. As far as some of the upcoming events that we had going on this month. So hopefully a lot of people showed up for the extra things that we had going on. So, yeah.
Your food seems to be getting better every year.
Yeah, my big takeaway was, what my highlight for that day was, this young man came up to me, he's a young student, and he says, "You spoke at my school for Martin Luther King Day." And I go, "Oh, great, how was it? How did we do?" He gave me 2 thumbs up.
Oh,
He said,
yeah.
"It was really good." So that was it, I was ready to go home.
Made your day.
Made my day.
Yeah, my neighbor, boy came and told me about that, and then also my Korean student said, "Oh, I saw you there," so that was very nice.
Yeah.
It was, I thought it was really good to have the proclamation against hate there, big, and also our, what we have done in the past, our highlighting our accomplishments. I thought both of those were like an easy thing to point to and start a conversation. So like that.
Great, John, do you have anything you want to share?
Yes.
Yay.
No, I wanted to mention that same thing as what Commissioner Clay said, that the having the Declaration Against Racism, Hate, and Discriminatory Actions was important, and it was amazing to be able to point to that. I also kind of use it as a barometer to kind of gauge the general public's interest when I was interacting with them, as well as the Transgender Day of Remembrance proclamation that we had out there. And I can tell you that I had the pleasure of speaking with several folks who were non-binary or otherwise gender diverse, and I had several folks just like tear up. The fact that the city of Lacey even did that, and that we are here advocating for them and their rights, as this entire country effectively otherwise, right, is actively targeting against them, and they just feel so alone and isolated. I had some very candid and real conversations with several lovely people that expressed how grateful they were that we not only existed, but that we are here doing the work.
Yes.
And that we are making a difference and fighting for their right to exist. So I just wanted to share that with the commission because it was really powerful, honestly, and it was such a privilege to be a part of that.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Did you have anything to add to that, or?
I was just gonna say, so it sounds like bring the youth council back again next time, make sure we have those proclamations and those accomplishments.
Yeah. Fantastic. I know, so Dr. Jackson, you talked about Black History Month. I mean, the museum update, but did you want to talk about it, or?
I'll just be brief. I think in my inspirational part, covered most of it. But one of the things we added to the Black History Museum this year were QR codes on some of the exhibits. And we got the volunteer help of a professional who really helped us do a nice job. So I want to pass these out to you because that one QR code there would take you to all 11 videotapes, and they range from 30 seconds to 45 seconds. And we're really proud of the technological addition we made. And the same young man is saying, I've got some more ideas to help you all for next year. But please take a look at those. We were just so pleasantly surprised at how well they turned out. And whether you were able to make it through the museum or not, and even if you made it through the museum and was so busy looking that you didn't have time to point your camera, there they all are for you.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Great. Alrighty. Okay, now we are going to go to director report.
Great. Well, I've just got a couple of quick updates and then one question for you all. So first update on the equity map. So we are currently working with the contractor on they've set up kind of a mock-up of it. And so we're gonna be able to test it here in the next couple of weeks. So I look forward to having you all take a look at it and poke around and take a look at what you think and giving some feedback so that we can get it back to our consultants. We did take a look, one of the questions that the commission had asked was on adding something about adult literacy rates and education. And we don't have anything beyond just highest education attained. They did take a look at to see if there was some sort of data set that they could find out there. But they couldn't find any additional data that was something that they could use to compare across Thurston County. The second update, and we talked about the community survey. You all gave some great feedback on that. We are looking to finalize moving forward with that here shortly, and hopefully we will be going out with the community survey in mid-April. Our communication manager, Ty Keltner, is working on this project and he's going to be presenting it to council a little bit later. And then from that point on, we would go forward. So the idea again would be that with this program, community members would receive a letter in the mail talking about a community survey opportunity for them to take. And they will either have the option to take it paper or online and provide feedback to the community. This will also be available in several languages, so English, Spanish, and Korean are what we are currently looking at. Next item I had here was on a potential community forum. So I had a meeting the other day with a community member who is very engaged in dealing with active duty and veteran families. And they suggested that we should put on a community forum to hear from voices from this community group. And so I think this is something that we may be able to do pretty quickly if they have an event already established that we could join in with. And so I just wanted to check in with the commission and see if that's something we should move forward with putting some planning into.
As a veteran, I support.
I support it too as a spouse.
So do I. This is a significant portion of our community.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, John?
Yeah, I was just gonna relay my support also. I was actually gonna suggest that perhaps myself, Commissioner Hart, and Commissioner Brown be in attendance. I believe we're the ones most closely affiliated to the military in this commission. Perhaps I'm mistaken, but I believe that's the case.
Our Commissioner Garza too also is a
Yes.
former
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'm a veteran as well.
Yeah, and I'm a disabled vet.
Oh.
Two vets.
So as you all know, I can have 3 commissioners, or else I will have a quorum. So are there 3 commissioners who would be interested in helping start to plan this? I heard Commissioner Hegwood.
Yes, and that's the case. I would suggest, I guess, the 3 veterans. Commissioner Hart, hopefully you don't mind.
Yeah, and
Go for it.
So
There's
Commissioner
not
Garza,
also, like-
myself, and Brown, it would sound?
Well,
Oh,
I would defer to
Makita.
you
I think
as
the
a spouse.
spouse
You need
would
that.
be important.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
I'd like
I would
to-
also like to posit that I am also an active duty spouse.
Yeah, because both you and your spouse were military, right?
Correct. My spouse is still
Now
in.
we've- Right, so now we've got dual.
There we go. I like
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so I've got Commissioner Hegwood, Commissioner Hart, and Commissioner Brown.
No,
No, Garza.
Garza.
Okay,
Not Hart.
all right, I think I got it. Third time, I think I got this one. So we'll take a look at planning this and, you know, potentially if there is an event that we can, you know, make sure that we can collaborate on, or if we can host it at the Lacey Veteran Services Hub, that could also be an option. So we'll start looking into that. And then I just had a couple more before I get to number D. Number one, that we launched our first ever city community academy, so citywide community academy. You all know we've had Lacey Police Department academies before in the past. But last week we launched our first just citywide community academy, and it was a great success. We had 18 individuals from the community learn some basics about the city. They're gonna continue to learn over the next 5 weeks, meeting with our, Public Works Department, our Community Economic Development Department, our Finance Department, our Parks Department. So we'll have more to report on that, and hopefully we'll be able to continue this program in the future so that we can help get more information out to the community and increase ambassadors, and then hopefully also use it as a pipeline to get some more advisory board members as well. Another thing that was brought to my attention, and I sent this email out to you all earlier today, was that there is a ribbon cutting for a history kiosk at the Regional Athletic Complex on March 8th at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So please feel free to come and take a look at that new kiosk. Is there anything you wanted to add on that one, Vice Chair Jackson?
No, it's kind of a countywide kind of thing that the RAC has been chosen as the location for it. But I've seen a picture of the newly constructed kiosk and it looks very attractive, and it has room for 6 panels that will change, from year to year. But it's geared up to history, so yeah. I haven't seen the actual thing, but I'm kind of excited about it.
Oh, it's a rack?
Yeah, where the Juneteenth is held. You said from 10 o'clock to what time on the
To
8th?
noon.
10 to noon.
Yep, and the invitation's in your inboxes if you are looking and want to attend. The last item I had was I just wanted a little bit of feedback. So at the end of our last commission meeting, it was brought up this idea of potentially having a retreat to kind of get to know each other a little bit more, and then also to talk about, the implementation of the strategic plan. And so I just wanted to get some high level feedback from you all on some things that you would be interested in potentially doing, so I can bring back some ideas for your consideration at a future meeting. So I'd just like to get some feedback from y'all on what would this look like? What are you thinking?
My thought, my idea when I brought up this idea of a retreat, something above and beyond our monthly meetings, it's nightly, monthly meetings, a much casual setting, with some stated hope for outcomes, improved, getting to know one another relationships. But one of the main things I was interested in is how do we go about our year's work? Because the last 2 or 3 years, each one of our meetings, we've had a major presentation by a city department. And we've had all those now. And now that we have our strategic plan, we're in a different role of kind of monitoring and checking out. So the usual meeting structures for us, I see changing. So how do we want to see that happen? What other areas do we want to have presentations on and get involved in? And the first time around with the first group of commissioners, not all commissioners were actively engaged in the work of the commission. And so we've got a new commissioner, we've got a new youth commissioner. Let's talk about that so we can make sure that we've got a fully engaged commission, and we're contributing as we all signed up with a specific set of duties that we, said we wanted to be a part of, and just revisit that kind of thing. Just a one-time thing, maybe a Saturday on a 9 to 12 or a 1 to 4 Saturday afternoon or something like that, with lunch or some refreshments. And so our meetings become a lot more meaningful, and we take care of our business, but we're also doing the things to serve our community that we agreed to do. And that might not feel like a need for anybody else, but I come, I go, I see you. If we don't stumble over one another out in the community at various things, with your family or whatever. I don't know anything about you. And it just helps, the more I get to know one another as we sit around the table dealing with the work of the commission itself. So that was my thought.
All right, oh, okay.
Sorry, I have my hand a lot tonight. I completely agree with Vice Chair Jackson. I think that the goal of this retreat, or whatever it is that it looks like, should be for greater collaboration amongst the commissioners. And of course, this model could be copied across other commissions for the city, and with similar results where you have more efficacy and greater ability to relate to one another and to make things happen without I don't know, perhaps like superfluous infighting, if you will, or like a greater cohesion, I guess is what I'm looking for, like a esprit de corps, if you will, for those of my military background friends here in this commission. I definitely foresee, like Vice Chair Jackson also mentioned, like perhaps a morning to early afternoon, or a early afternoon to evening situation during a weekend. I know that Indigenous Peoples Day is typically a popular option for a lot of these types of things, just because it's kind of a holiday in the middle of. Oh.
Huh? I didn't know.
It's a police department open right now, do you have that? I think it's done with police, but something, but I don't know if there's like a way to talk about it.
I don't know. She's gonna help him.
Okay. I completely lost my train of thought, but
You were at noon to the mid-afternoon,
right.
Indigenous Peoples'
Yes.
Day.
Also,
Yeah.
like most of a partial day, we could give up half of a day of a weekend or a holiday weekend that's superfluous for most of us, to kind of better understand each other, our backgrounds, and have a more familiar knowledge that we can draw on, rather than just sitting across the table from each other whenever we have these meetings.
So Annie?
Yeah, what I like is conversations with people that I can get to know what their lived experience is and learn from that and what impacts their lives. And we try to do that in the community, but I think because we have built up a lot of trust with each other, and maybe Raul and Kieran can feel that, that we share a little bit more about our shared our experience, lived experience, why this work is so important to us. What it's like to be a Black woman in Mississippi, what it's like to grow up as a queer woman in Chehalis. I mean, I think that brings things to the heart more about why we're working so hard. So I'd like a little, like, really share a little portion of really sharing.
Yeah, if I may, to be candid, I barely know any of you, right? So I think that it's a brilliant idea to better understand your guys' intersectionality and what brings you to this line of work and what motivates you all. Because yes, a Saturday is superfluous. Sorry, I'm running on fumes here, but I think it's a great idea. And I do dedicate my Saturdays to, like, actually in spending more time, outside of just work, school, and Sunday is the only day that I'm like, no, I'm not doing anything. That's my day to decompress. But absolutely, I think it's a brilliant idea to better understand all of you and what motivates you guys in this line of work.
I appreciate hearing all that feedback. And
What that actually entails, I don't know, but.
And somewhere plain and simple, like, the White House down at the park. You familiar with that? I've been to retreats down there, city-owned property. you know, don't have to travel, don't have to get in your car and go for miles, like some people think of retreats. It's just the opportunity for togetherness in a casual setting. But that's one facility that comes to mind. It's already a city property that wouldn't cost us anything if it doesn't conflict with classes and other activities. But right there in the
You're
community.
thinking of like a potluck?
No, I say it get catered. You're just talking about a sandwich or two and a cookie. I mean, nothing fancy, just the togetherness of it.
Well, I'll be back with more information on that. Thank you, commissioners. I appreciate it. That is the end of my report.
Right. Okay, anything else? Anybody else have anything to share?
I just wanted to share from the pop-up Black History Museum. I had the opportunity to visit twice, and I'm ashamed I didn't have more opportunities due to a full schedule on the weekends. Unfortunately, yesterday, as I mentioned, I was at the YWCA Let's Talk series. Not yesterday, Saturday. Whenever the last day was happening for the museum, but myself and a few other people there were lamenting that we were donating our time there instead. But I can tell you, as Vice Chair Jackson mentioned, that a lot of the QR codes were invaluable. Thelma, I could tell you that I still have a lot of those links like on my browser, and like I just kind of go through them when I have, because like so much information, and it's great. I love that I have this much information to go through. And so I'm like, I have a spare 30 minutes. I have a spare hour and a half. Let me just pop into here and like read this piece, or I'll watch this video, or, you know, whatever it is. And I would also like to shout out that Thelma's on quite a few of those videos.
Say
being,
what?
You're on a few of those videos being a subject matter expert, and she is killing it. She's doing a great job. Not that I have to sing.
Out of 11, John, just two. Yeah.
That's several, okay?
Several. Yeah, that's several. That's several in my book.
Thank you.
But the point remains, I would also say that the most poignant part to me that stood out was the student portraits of important figures in Black history. You know, I love, and particularly for like the MLK Day event, whenever Dr. Braxton quoted, oh gosh, I just had his name, James Baldwin, like 6 or 7 times. I was beside myself because as a queer person of color, I'm like, you know, he was excommunicating from like the Black Civil Rights Movement back in the day, and Dr. Braxton was very intentional, right, on quoting him numerous times throughout his speech. Not only that, during the Pop-Up Black History Museum, I saw several references to him, and that was wonderful to see. But even better than that was going through the student drawings of portraits of important figures of Black history. They had Marsha P. Johnson, who I've quoted here for our commission as my inspirational item in the past. And there was no other reference to her across the entire museum, but a student at, I believe, River Ridge felt it necessary to have her on the wall of important figures of Black history. And that just made my entire month, honestly. I was so excited. I knew exactly who she was the second I saw her face. And they had like, you know, the details, and it was just beautiful. I loved every moment of it. So thank you for that. I really appreciated it. And I didn't even notice it the first time when I spent, you know, 4 hours, I don't know, 6, I want to say like 12 hours, but it, whenever I spent much more time there than the second time where I kind of sped run it because I only had like 25 minutes to spare that day. And it just stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, oh, geez. And I completely missed it the first time. And the second time, she like reached out and grabbed me and said, pay attention to me. So I really love that. So I just wanted to share that.
Great.
Thanks, John.
Well, thank you. All right. So with that, I just want to say something real quick. What a great way to kind of end the conversation. So our Commissioner, Vice Chair Jackson have been nominated to South Sound Women's Women's Award by International Seroptist of Olympia, and she will be awarded in May 3rd. I'd like to invite you all to Indian Summer Golf Course that morning, and that there will be lunch served, but I think there is a entry fee that you have to pay to support that organization. but I'd like to invite you all. So
What was the time on that again? Sorry.
May 3rd.
Do you have a time?
It is from 10 to 1.
Okay.
I'm going to give more information.
If you wanna send it to me, I can make
Yeah,
sure to
okay,
do it in with
great.
my follow-ups.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Alrighty, and so with anything else for the night? There is no other business. I adjourn the Commission on Equity meeting at 8:13 PM. Thank you. Thank